started doing this. But one of the things that is probably one of their best-selling products is to make a shift kit for these gearboxes that people complain about, that makes them feel much more modern. And my brother owned a car with one of these shifters in it, and it improved the experience a lot, which would be great for like a racetrack or back rows. But it made it feel really contemporary in a way that wasn't like consistent with the character of the rest of the car, which was very like 70s and carbureted and like. And so I was like, oh, I don't know that I would necessarily need that. Depending on how, if you're going to be hauling ass in canyons, sure. If you want a sort of snapshot of the vintage experience of the car when it was new, then it's maybe less necessary because it just felt really contemporary.
Yeah, so that we've discussed this in the past, the sameness of controls, or and
Yes,
controls
harmony.
are just a harmony of controls, right? And I've definitely fucked that up. I mean, I have a shifter in my E30 that is too heavy and too short of throw to match the light, the factory light clutch and the way the brake feels and whatever. There's sort of one thing that I did that it doesn't really work, and I probably should undo it. But the fascinating part is looking at cars for which there is an accepted aftermarket supplier, and it's like this is the one aftermarket mod that fixes everything. Like a Ferrari 355, for example, the factory exhaust manifolds light the car on fire and blow the engines up, and they have all these other weird issues. And so the sort of I hate to use this word, correct thing to do is you take the manifold and headers off, and you replace and you keep them, so you can say I still have them with the car, but then you replace it with a 2B or insert name of other exhaust system, and it's just an accepted modification.
Yeah, because it addresses a fundamental shortcoming of the original product.
Right. So I think we both agree in that sense. Like anything that addresses a fundamental problem with the car and fixes it is an acceptable modification. Mm-hmm. And the reason you think I'm strict about modifying cars is that I have the Mercedes. So my Cosworth 190 2.316, I went so far as to get a factory Mercedes battery for the car because I want everything to look exactly as it did when the car.
I don't think that's that remarkable, but I'm also weird. That.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I will not modify that car. I mean, the speakers sound like shit, but they're original. I have a Becker radio that's original. That's not the original to the car. I have the original block one, but I think the Becker is the one that looks the part. So that's the one I put in. I won't do anything despite the fact that it would look so amazing on 16s or monoblocks and clear corners, and like you can make those cars look so badass. But I feel like anything I do will change the fundamental way that it changes the way that car drives and that appears. And I love the whole story of that car and the whole warts and all, everything about it. I love the whole thing, so I refuse to change it, which is why I get that sort of strict.
It depends a lot on the car. Certain cars deserve to be treated like that. Other cars where something has already been done or something needs to be redone, I think it's more acceptable to do. Reversibility also matters a lot. Like my 500E has a lot of stuff that's done to it, but it's all sort of pretty subtle reversible stuff that is almost entirely factory. Like the car is lowered, but it's lowered using the factory springs because you can just put slimmer spring perches on. Which is a factory Mercedes part. It's just not what was originally on the car. And it has a bunch of sort of weird European stuff on it. It has European headlights and European turn signal lenses, and has like AMG wheels that are from an SL, and it has some European stuff. Like it has the Glock box, they call it, which is this weird little box that goes in front of the passenger seat. Because I don't know, which was never fitted.
In front of or underneath?
Like underneath under your kneecaps or under your knees if you're sitting in the passenger seat. It has all these little things that are done to it. It has a steering wheel that's not original to the car, but is a factory Mercedes steering wheel. And so that sort of OEM plus thing, which is to take like something from the basket of OEM parts just not original to that car, I think is perfectly acceptable because it doesn't change the ethos of the car. And so what we started talking about last time was that you would like to preserve the character of the car, the original character of the car, but just sort of turn it up in intensity. To, I think approximately 14 is pretty ideal.
That's my goal too. I mean, I have 3, so it's funny that you said that I'm strict, and then, I'm strict about modifications, but I have 3 cars with engine swaps. Mm-hmm. And, that's the idea, is like, if they, from the outside, like it's not, what I didn't do, for example, is like a popular modification on the early Volkswagens is throw a late turbocharged engine in, or a VR6. You can throw a VR6 in,
Yeah.
or now all the kids are putting an AVA, which is a 2-point slow with a turbo on it, or a 2.0T or 1.8T in there. I absolutely refuse. Aside from the fact that I don't want a turbocharged engine to begin with, but that so fundamentally changes the way the car drives that you're now turning it into something it wasn't. And I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Personally, like if you don't want the car to drive the way it did from the factory, then this isn't the car that you want. Or maybe it is. I mean, I'm an idiot because I'm just now going to contradict myself. I want that Mallet LS7 engine Saturn Sky. And then somebody on Instagram was like, "Oh my God, if you missed that one, there's another one for sale." And I'm like, "Oh," and click on the link, and it's a 4-cylinder turbo. Like that is the last thing I want. That car was terrible from the fucking factory because of that wretched Turbo 4. So no, that's not what I want. So even like on the one side, I'm like, can't change anything, and it has to be exactly the way it was, and I don't want to change the fundamentals of it. And the other side is like, well, I'm addressing a fundamental issue that the car sucked from the factory, and now it doesn't.
Yeah, so what you're actually saying is that you like modifications as long as they bring the car closer to your ideal definition of what a car should do.
Right, closer to my ideal.
Yes.
Right. So I just did this week the spotlight on the Lancia Delta Integrale launch, and it was fun to do because I spent a week with a red Delta Evo 1, and then we did the video with another Evo 1, but that's a Martini 5 Special Edition that we have in the office. And then at the end, there's a driving video, and the driving video is in the red car. And the red car is modified. I can't quite. I know this is going to be a surprise because everyone involved is in Italian. I can't quite get the straight answer on what's modified on the car, and I've been told
the suspension.
I know the suspension is modified. I have been told 5 different stories about the engine. Last of which was it's completely stock.
Well, from the American. You heard that from the American.
From the American who also has an Italian passport. So I don't know what the fuck to believe, but the car is definitely modified. It had 17s on it, and we put the factory 15s back on it for the back road drive with sticky tires. The suspension is way lower and way stiffer than the Martini car that I also drive, the white one. That is fully stock. But I don't feel like that car has changed in its personality. Like it's definitely stiffer. It definitely steers differently than the other car, and it has absurd amounts of grips. I mean, the car is just absolutely unfucking catchable on the back road. And for the suspension, I was told it's like the Group B. I guess it was Group A. So whatever it is, it's the rally suspension that was put on the street car. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with absolutely none of it because it just feels exactly like the stock car, just more focused.
Because it works.
Yeah.
The reason why, so